Hello and welcome to the tutorial about how to use the MotraBake script that I wrote to work in tandem with Advanced Skeleton. So you need to make sure first of all that you've got these four icons because you have Advanced Skeleton 5 correctly installed. Now this tutorial is filled with details, very specific details. So when I ask that you look for certain files in certain folders, I would recommend that you pause the video and just make sure that all the naming conventions align. In this case, this is where I have put my MotraBake script, and it is under my specific folder, Documents, Maya. I'm using 2018. You may be using a later version, and under Scripts. When you sift them by name, of course, you'll be able to find the MotraBake Mel. But more importantly, also, you need to make sure that you've got your Advanced Skeleton 5 files. If it's another version, I don't know if it'll work, but this is currently working with Advanced Skeleton 5, so it's going to look for that folder in this folder. And also, you have the Advanced Skeleton Mel script right here. Advanced Skeleton 5.mel. So if, for instance, and I'll just simulate someone that doesn't have this in the correct folder, I'll just create a new folder. I'll get rid of MotraBake over here. And this is done so that I can simulate what it's like to not have the proper folder in the proper place. If I click on this now, it's actually going to give me an error, and it's going to say, look, you don't have this mel script in this particular folder. You need to install this file, mel, the Advanced Skeleton 5 files folder. It's very explicit about what you need to do. So if you have a question about, wait a minute, I don't know where my scripts are, I don't know where Maya looks for my scripts, here's an easy way to find that. Come into Maya and bring up something called the script editor. In the lower right hand corner you can find it here in this icon. You can click on it and it will come up. You also should be able to come up here and get the script editor by coming into General Editors, Script Editor. And of course I'm using 2018. Yours may be in another area, so you can always go to Find menu under Help and simply type in Script and see where Maya tells you to find it. There's where it is here under Windows, General Editors, Script Editor. So with the script editor up, the menu command you want to use is File Open Script, and it should take you to the folder that Maya's looking for your scripts. And it should be something like, it tends to be Documents, Maya, the version of Maya scripts. All this stuff can be local to your drive, but all this stuff tends to be fairly uniform. So you want to make sure that you've got your MotraBake script and you've got all of your proper folders in the right place. So I'm going to undo this, and you can see that once that things are in the right folder, it should work fine. So I'm just going to grab these, cut, and then paste. And then I'm going to come down to New Folder and just delete it. So now it's in the right place, and when I click on the script, it comes up just fine. So let's go over this because there are a couple of things that I've saved for you folks to download and utilize. So I've got this, which is a Google Drive folder that has everything on it, both motion capture, doing the motion capture process of just sending me a movie from your smartphone and I can transfer it into an FBX using kind of an AI process, or using Mixamo, which is this online service that lets you download many different animations from an uploaded rig, or simply download a default rig. This is a character that I created here on the right, so I can choose any of these moves. Capoeira is pretty good because an action character really shows whether or not that character is moving and deforming well. But even if you're using something more benign like sitting and laughing or sitting down, you can download this, and this comes in as an FBX, and we can utilize this to put onto an advanced skeleton rig. So you need to go to this folder, and you should get the folder name from me because pretty much all USC students have the access to it. And I want to go over the different things that you want to put in your folder. So download all of this as one zip file, and then unload that zip file once you've got it in your folder. Put the mel script for Yumbo AI, MotraBake.mel into your scripts folder that we've just indicated. Make sure that you have Advanced Skeleton 5 folders, and I will tell you where to put all these other items. So I'm going to unzip this using, and I'm obviously on a PC here. This is just a drive download. So I know where these two go. MotraBake goes into my scripts folder. The icon goes into the prefs icons folder. And the rest of this stuff is stuff that I will let you part out. So we know where those go. You should put them in the proper area. And the first thing you want to do, once you have all of these in the proper area by installing Advanced Skeleton, and again, you can just go to the Advanced Skeleton site and download the latest Advanced Skeleton and download, and you just get the latest version. Click on this, download it, and it comes with its own install mel. So just there's really a very simple install process involved in this, and it's they've made it very easy for people to do so. There's literally, once you get those folders and put them in your Documents, Maya, Scripts folder, you need to make sure that you run the mel script that installs this, and you just drag it into Maya and it will install it. There are many different tutorials online that you can find about installing Advanced Skeleton, so you can find those. This is going to take a little too long to download as a zip file, but that's how you get it. You get a copy. When you successfully install it, you should have these 4 icons here pop up. And MotraBake, also, you want to come down here before you run any of it, and just go into OpenScript, and it should take you to your scripts folder. Once you have MotraBake correctly placed, you can select the mel script, open it, all right, and then you want to come up here to Command and execute it. And if it pops up like this, then you are in the money. This is your first bit of validation that things work. And this is how you should install things and verify things. Don't just go from one thing to the next. Okay, you told me to put this here, I put it there. Now what's next? Okay, do that, I'll do that. Check your work every step of the way. So this is the first validation that things work. So do this before you move on. Otherwise you may have missed a step and suddenly you've got 2 or 3 things piling up on you and you don't know what happened. So this is this is the first step where you simply read in the script and you come up to Command, Execute, and it should pop up. All right, the second thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you've got things in the right, which one of these you're going to be using. Are you going to be using a Mixamo or a Yumbo FBX? You have to be clear on which one it is. You can't just have random FBXs in your folder. So in this case, we will try one with a Mixamo character. So here's what happens with MotraBake when it successfully comes up. It should be letting you know your current workspace, and another caveat to this is that you are correctly using Maya workspaces. If you don't know what that is, or I'm sorry, Maya projects, if you don't know what that is, please learn, because what Maya does is it works within a project, and you can again look up these tutorials. What is a Maya project? What does it do? And you should be in a workspace that is indicated under system folders. It tells you the workspace, the scripts folder, it tells you the project folder, and it tells you where it's going to be accessing all of your scripts. Kind of twice here, but you know, you might need those in case your workspace is different. So what you want to do is choose the right input, Mixamo, then go in here to this pop-down menu. You're going to set the folder for what you're going to read in, both as your Advanced Skeleton folder, so you need the rig, and this is your FBX folder. So you can clear these out if you've done it incorrectly and you want to do it again. But once you click on the green buttons, you should go to a file that says, where do you want to download this stuff from? I'm going to go to the downloads folder and just open up what I've unzipped, because it's got everything from the drive. And I'm going to do the same thing for my advanced skeleton folder here. But I would like people to feel good about and to invest in a very specific folder for your advanced skeleton rigs within your project. And that's all they hold, is your advanced skeleton rigs, period. And your FBX folder should have subfolders of like Mixamo and Yumbo and what have you. In fact, just as a lesson, I think it would be good if I come in here and just quickly do that. So let's do this, desktop downloads, there we are. So instead of this drive download, let's just rename it. So we'll say this is mocap project, and underneath that, I've got folders here. One is advanced skeleton, and another one is Mixamo, and another one is Yumbo. Now luckily I've named these so you know what they are, but in the future I really recommend that these processes that output the files, just name them very badly, and it will hurt you because you'll get confused, because I'll get confused. So just take a second, as we've done here, 5 minutes, just put a separate folder for your advanced skeleton rigs, a separate folder for your Mixamo FBXs, and a separate folder, if you have them, for Yumbo AI FBXs, and also what they're named. Because again, these come out as absolutely impenetrable names, 1, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, and it's not going to help the project. So set the FBX folder. Once it's set, you don't reset it, but you can clear. Set the FBX folder, and now we're going to go to mocap project, and it's Mixamo that we want. So now this has a clear folder, and I can clear this out as well. Set the advanced skeleton folder. There we are. So the first thing that happens is I want to come up here and create a new scene. Then I want to save my settings, export current settings. What this does is this saves this setup, so that if you bring back MotraBake, you can actually go to settings and read them in, and it should come in with your previous assignments. And as I fill this out, if I am to repeatedly do this for a series of motion capture, I want to have all these files kind of ready to go. And so this lets you export your settings once you fill them in. So now that we've set the two folders that we're going to be using, let's collapse that. Read in the FBX, and it's going to read the FBX from this folder here. It has nothing assigned, so I'm going to choose /, and it comes in. Grab the mesh, press F, and you should be able to kind of go around the character. Beware, if you grab the skeleton and press F, you could get a different reaction. I have on occasion had the character disappear because the camera pulls too far back. So instead, bring up the outliner, grab the mesh instead of the bone system, and press F, and you should see it just fine. Then, and again, we're using Mixamo, and we can even validate that by the FBX as well as the folder and the drop-down. Hit this button, which should turn your character into a T-pose, which is what's necessary to track with the motion capture. Then just hit output. It will save a Maya file of this same character in this same folder. So if we go into this area for Mixamo, we should see that it's saved a Maya file equivalent of this FBX. Well, that's great. So we have output it. We now go to this next drop down, and we want to read in the rig. But at this point, I'm going to save my settings so that, again, if I bring this back up, I can read them in, and even more has been filled in for me. Wonderful. And it also remembers which of the mocap systems I'm trying to use, Mixamo or Yumbo. So at this point, we're going to read in the advanced skeleton rig, and it takes me right to the folder. Now, I have modified this tuna rig, which, by the way, is downloadable from the advanced skeleton web page here. And I really recommend that long before people get custom rigs, even using Advanced Skeleton, test out this project on these example rigs right here. So this gives you dozens to download, and I've downloaded this character, Max, and this character, Tuna. But there is a special setup in Maya that allows you to read in a skeleton or to utilize a skeleton. So what I've done with the Tuna rig, and you'll see it in just a minute, for those of you that are getting into Advanced Skeleton, this comes with a skeleton, but that's just sort of a little party trick, because for those of you that have been rigging this, this has a little area where you can turn on and off a skeleton, and I just created it for the purpose of this demonstration. You don't actually need the skeleton. Suffice to say that I've posed this character in a T-pose, and I saved the file at the right scale to coincide with my FBX. All right, so I didn't just read this in and say, oh, I hope it matches. I read in my FBX and I compared it against the height of the Advanced Skeleton rig, and then I saved the Advanced Skeleton rig knowing that it matches the height and the T-pose of the incoming motion capture. So the motion capture system here is actually in Advanced Skeleton. I'm just facilitating it with these buttons. So let's move on. By the way, the geometry down here under skeleton, body, don't need edit, but this is where I've found it. I can just press delete and it goes away, and I can press create and it comes back. All right, it's just one of the many little tips and tricks that you can do with this this project. It seems to have modified it in a way I don't like, so I'm just going to read in my saved one. Haha. Things happen all the time, so that's why once you assign this to a role, you can repeatedly read it back in and just change your FBX input, and you'll be able to tag it onto whatever you want. Okay, so these green buttons here, read in mocap skeleton, should just be sequential. So click on one, it'll give you a warning, student version, no worries. Okay, there's a T-pose, matching the T-pose of the other character. Things are not exact, but they're close, which is okay because we're going to be using the relative rotations. And remember, rotations are sort of scale agnostic. They don't really, doesn't matter if your character is 100 feet high or 10 inches high, we're just matching rotations. But this just allows us to visualize whether or not this character is sort of lined up, and it is, certainly enough. The next, as you press these buttons, they turn gray, so you can go next to prepare transfer to AS. Now, it's going to automatically pop up dozens of Advanced Skeleton windows. Please leave them up. This is another devil in the details. Sometimes people do this step and they go, oh, I want to get rid of these windows. Please do not. You need these up. So just move them to the side, and you can see that it's Advanced Skeleton is ready to take these in the motion capture FBX and put them on the Mixamo FBX joints and assign them rotation values on not the skeleton, but the controllers. So remember, this process is one where we're taking existing movement on a skeleton input and we're putting it on the controls of Advanced Skeleton. And that's important because once you do it, an animator can continue animating this, which was impossible with things from Mixamo and Yumbo. So click on Transfer Moves to Advanced Skeleton. Should be pretty quick. And then bake and unload the motion capture. And what it's going to do is it's going to quickly bake it onto the controllers. Again, not the skeleton. I can continue to animate this if I need to, which is really one of the benefits of doing this process, is that if you have an animator that's ready to keep animating, they can do so. So I'm going to grab just the head control, and look, you've got motion capture data, but it's not on a bone, it's actually on just the curve. So ostensibly someone could come in here and grab grab this, then they could go into simplify curve, make it even smaller points, and then they can continue animating if they want. If you don't want, that's fine too. But at this point, verify that this works. There, it works nicely. Got a nice skeleton sort of slashing at something. And you can save this at this point for your animator. So let's do that. We currently have, see under downloads, mocap project, advanced skeleton. I'm going to create a new folder, animated AS. And this is // and an animator can access that and continue working on it if they need to. Another thing that's really good is, let's say this, you only want to use some of this character's movement. Well, if your animator knows advanced skeleton, they could come in here and grab the controls and do an IKFK blend, moving it back to something they can control wholly. And again, this is not a tutorial on how to animate. This is a tutorial on what you can do so that now, let's say the character is kind of sitting down, or you could take the animation of the hip here and try and make sure it's not moving. That doesn't seem to have animation on it, but I bet this does. There we are. So if I were to break the connection here, it's at 0, 0, 0. And then I move it down, and it's the one keyframe that this thing has, so I can move it in a sitting position. And now this character does a slash, and if I want the head to look another way, I can modify it. Anyway, the point is, I'm able to continue animating this. But when it's ready, in fact, I can save this, doing this out of habit, of course, // don't ever write over your stuff. Always do versions. You never know when you got to go back. When this is ready to go, the last thing you can do is come in here to this part, bake onto a game rig, and that's because there's a lot of information here. Advanced Skeleton has quite an amount of unnecessary information because it does so much. You got motion systems, deformation systems, geometry, face group. We're not even using the face group. Doesn't have a face. And so all this stuff is kind of unnecessary noise. I mean, it looks good. It's great that we're able to animate it, but can we just bake down everything so that we just have a game skeleton at the end? And the answer is yes. And at the very end of that, which is this process here, it's just this last green button. But before I do that, I want to point this out, which is mocap transfer info. If this is not there, I'm going to actually cut this out. So what that was, I will explain in a minute. But what I want to do is just bake this onto the game rig. So if I click on this, it'll say, oh, I actually need, I need to have those controls up. I closed these by mistake. So good, don't do as I do, do as I say. So bring these up, bake onto the game rig. It'll say, are you sure you want to? And it effectively bakes everything onto a game skeleton. And now we get to the point where that locator is important. And here's why. It's baked the skeleton, but it hasn't gotten rid of all this other now vestigial extra stuff we don't need. Deformation system, motion system, mocap constraints, all that stuff is tedious to clean up, which currently says I'll delete the leftover items by hand. But if I had the mocap transfer info, you see, let me just paste that back into my scene. Whenever you paste something back into Maya, it always puts it under a group and then renames it. Ay. What are you going to do? But here we are. This is a locator, which you can create like so, locator, and then give it this name. Make sure you match the camel case. Again, devil's in the details, no underscores, no spaces. And under this mocap transfer info locator, you can have, if you come up here and click on the button to evoke the attribute editor, make sure you're not in the shape tab, but you're in the info tab. You can list all the things that you want this process to automatically delete after baking. All right. So if this is in the scene, mocap transfer info, in your advanced skeleton scene, with all this stuff listed, it will automatically delete all this stuff at the very end. Trying to be super clean and trying to do things for the user. So let's go back and reread in the AS rig, showing you how we can I'll even close these windows. I'll read in the advanced skeleton rig since we know exactly where it is. Comes in as tuna. And I want to point out that right here in the outliner is that very mocap transfer info with all this information. So once I read in the mocap skeleton, I prepare to transfer to AS, I transfer moves to AS, bake and unload mocap, and then I bake onto the game rig. It actually does me a further service by going into mocap transfer info, getting the information of everything that needs to be deleted, including itself. And we are left only with a nice stripped down skeletal hierarchy. And the only other thing we have on top of the skeletal hierarchy is the geometry. Now, if you wanted to, and by the way, take a look at this. This actually still has the original geometry for the character, for Tuna. I did not actually turn that off. So I could turn this on and turn this off to show you that this now belongs on this character as well. So if all I needed was the skeleton, then I could say model geo, delete that. Or more importantly, I'd make sure it's deleted in my rig setup. And I could also come down here and say, you know what, we're not doing any of this lid stuff, bake neck, and right from about head and face, all that stuff. You could put that information into the locator, but be careful, it's very destructive, of course. So that's pretty much it. The other thing about MotraBake is it allows you to, again, I'll read in my settings. And if we were to go to Yumbo, there's a slightly different process. I want to clear this out because I want to read in a new FBX. Clear that, FBX, animated. Let's go to Yumbo and open the new FBX. Let's do a hip check. Okay, there we are. Yumbo. Now, make sure your frame number, well, -20 is fine. Bake Yumbo. It does a T-pose. Make sure it is in a nice upright T-pose at the end, not leaning or totally rotated. You save that out, and then you basically do the same process. Read in the rig, Tuna, and then you read in the mocap skeleton. Prepare to transfer. Now there's a switch. Here's something very important for those of you doing Yumbo. For Yumbo, you need use underscore right here. And that's because everything on the skeleton has an underscore. It does not have one on Mixamo. So this does you a nice reminder. It doesn't do it for you. I'm not able to come in here and manipulate things in Advanced Skeleton UI, but I've popped up a reminder to say use underscores with Yumbo. So make sure you do that. And then it should be pretty much the same process. Transfer moves, and then bake and unload the map. So in this case, this is a person doing a hip check. Boom. That's it. And again, I can bake it onto the game rig if I need to. I could save this for the animator, so I could say just right here, hip check, version 1. And that's for the animator to continue animating. When the animator's done, you can bring it in here and just start right down here, bake onto the game rig. As long as these windows are up, it'll work. And remember, it's got that nice little locator in it that gives you all the information necessary to correctly delete all the extra vestigial things. All right, cool. So the last thing you can do is come up here and click on the bone, the bake root, and trim the action, meaning it gets rid of everything before 0 and everything after 270, because that's not necessary. You've got a T-pose at 20, at -20, and you may not want that in your engine. So boom, hip check, not bad. This does not use hands, it does not use facial, but it's pretty good for motion capture that comes just from a movie. All right, one of the last things I want to address is that you probably will not be able to utilize Yumbo without the proper configuration, which is not inherently part of the mocap matcher for Advanced Skeleton. So come up here. It probably is going to be called, you know, Motion Builder or whatever. Look at that. It changes everything. Click on Export and go and choose cut and paste this so that you know where this folder is. This is the folder that lets you know the format for reading in the proper proper matching. Okay, and I have also saved that here in the Google Drive, Yumbo AI text. For those of you using it, you got to put it in your folder under Advanced Skeleton 5 Files, mocap matchers, because otherwise you won't have it available to be chosen up here, and you will need it. It is custom. So just make sure that you take care of that. Other than that, this should bake things out into a nice game rig for you, or bake it on so that an animator can continue using it. And if you have any questions, other than making sure everything's in the proper place, you've got it all named. Remember, don't rush through this and say it doesn't work. Validate every step of the way and make sure you're moving along, and stop the video and just go over those parts until they work for you. All right, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys, you folks have fun with this. And the last part is that when you have this successfully run, as a last little thing, you should be able to come up here to File. In fact, I'll do this in a different part here. Come up to File and Save Script to Shelf. Make sure that you've got it on MotraBake. Save it to Shelf and then call it MotraBake. And then come up here to your Shelf tabs and go to the Shelf Editor. Go down to MotraBake. Click on this folder icon. It'll take you to your icons, or you should find out where your icons are under Documents, Maya 2008, Prefs Icons, which is where you should have put the XPM for MotraBake, which is also here. I've saved you a nice little XPM file, which is the icon, this one right here. Just put it in 2000 or whatever version you're using, Prefs Icons, and then come in here and choose it. Press Open. I like to have no icon label. That's just the way I roll. I put it instead in Tooltip, which is the pop-up reminder of what this does. And then I just save all shelves. So instead of having to come down here to the script editor, the last thing I do is come up here to the gear and go to Save All Shelves. Make sure you click on that, because instead of coming down here to the script editor every time, you now have a nice little button that will bring it up. And remember, you can just read in your settings from your previous work and it should be ready to go. All right, have fun. Please give me feedback on the usage of this, and I look forward to talking to you.